The rain burned like liquid fire across the alien arena. When Captain Jace Rowan snatched a glowing blade to save a stranger, he thought he was stopping a murder. He didn't know that sword just made him her husband, and the only human who could decide the fate of an entire world. The storm rolled across Vera 9 like a living creature, purple lightning licking the mountains, thunder shaking the ground until the very air trembled. Captain Jace Rowan tightened the collar of his weather-beaten flight jacket and cursed softly at the blinking warning light on his ship's console. One storm, one broken relay, and he'd been forced to land on a planet most spacers avoided. The locals called this place sacred ground. To Jace, it looked like a graveyard wearing armor. Through the sheets of alien rain, he spotted movement ahead, a ring of figures surrounding a circular arena carved into stone. Their violet skin shimmered in the downpour, their silver hair catching flashes of lightning. At first, he thought it was some kind of festival until he heard the sound of steel meeting steel. Curiosity won over caution. He stepped closer, boots splashing in shallow puddles that reflected the electric sky. In the center, two warriors clashed with impossible speed. The smaller fighter, a woman by the curve of her form and the grace of her movements, moved like liquid light, every strike balanced between desperation and precision. Her opponent, a towering male twice her size, fought with cruel efficiency, driving her back with each blow. The crowd roared every time she stumbled. Jace frowned. "Guess chivalry didn't make it to this planet," he muttered, wiping rain from his eyes. When the male finally knocked her to the ground, raising his blade for the finishing strike, something in Jace snapped, the same impulse that had cost him his squad years ago. He didn't think. He moved. One moment he was an outsider. The next, he was inside the circle, hand closing around the fallen woman's sword. It was warm, almost alive, and as he lifted it, a pulse ran through his body like fire and ice colliding. The world stopped. The man's blade slammed against his, sparks exploding in the rain. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jace's arm shook, but he held the block. The warrior's four eyes widened in disbelief. "This isn't your fight, off-worlder," the man growled. "Yeah," Jace grunted, teeth clenched. "But it sure looked one-sided." A voice, old and sharp as wind through bone, cut through the silence. "He has wielded the Heartblade," the elder proclaimed. "By law he is bound." The crowd fell to their knees. The woman struggled to her feet, eyes flashing like molten silver. "You fool," she hissed, voice trembling between anger and shock. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Jace lowered the sword slightly. "Stopped a murder, I think." The elder stepped forward, his robes gleaming with rain. "By taking her clan's blade in her defense, you have invoked the bond of blood. You are now her husband." For a heartbeat, Jace just blinked. Rain dripped off his nose.
"I'm sorry, what?"
The woman's expression said she wasn't sure whether to thank him or stab him, and as thunder rolled again, Jace realized his day had gone. From bad landing to interstellar disaster, the fortress of the Varith clan rose from the mountain like it had been carved, by gods with trembling hands, stone and silver, fused into something ancient, glowing faintly under the storm's fading light. Jace followed the violet-skinned warriors through the echoing halls, soaked to the bone, still clutching the sword that had turned his life inside out. Every step he took drew stares. Whispers rippled through the corridors like wind through reeds. He didn't need a translator implant to guess what they were saying. Outsider, imposter, fool. Beside him walked Lyra Varith, the warrior he'd accidentally married. Her gait was rigid, every movement controlled, as if her pride was the only thing holding her together. The cut on her cheek glowed faintly blue in the half-light. "Listen," Jace started, breaking the silence. "About that whole husband thing, do not speak of it," she snapped without turning her head. "You have already said enough." "Right, of course. I'll just quietly process the fact that I got married by accident on an alien planet." Her eyes flicked toward him, a flash of disbelief, or maybe amusement, before she looked away. "You joke as if this were nothing. That blade is not a trinket. You touched it and now its choice binds us both." "Yeah, about that. Your people's sword decided to skip the dating phase entirely." Does it come with a manual? That earned him a glare sharp enough to cut stone. Still, the corner of her mouth twitched before she hid it. They entered the Hall of Judgment, where 7 elders waited. Their robes shimmered with embedded crystal threads, their gazes ancient and unblinking. At the center stood the rival warlord, Cale Thorn, the same brute who had tried to kill Lyra. He sneered when he saw Jace. "The off-worlder defiles our laws," Cale said, voice booming. "He must die or the bond be broken." "The bond cannot be broken," replied the eldest woman calmly. "The Heartblade chose. It has not done so in 3 centuries. Cale's eyes burned. "Then let him prove his worth. Let the outsider face the trials of the bonded." The hall erupted with murmurs. Lyra's breath caught. Jace didn't need translation to know it was bad news. "What are these trials?" he asked under his breath. "Tests of strength, mind, and soul," Lyra whispered. "No one outside our kind has ever survived them." Jace exhaled slowly. "Great. Alien marriage counseling through near-death experiences." Even Lyra couldn't suppress the smallest disbelieving smile. The elders struck their staffs against the floor, sealing the decree. At dawn, the trials begin. As they were led out, the sword pulsed faintly in Jace's grip, warm, rhythmic, alive. For a fleeting second, he thought he heard a whisper beneath the thunder. "You are not bound to her fate, human. You are bound to her heart." Jace froze. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. Whatever had just started between them wasn't just a law or accident anymore. It was destiny humming through steel. Dawn bled over the peaks of Vera 9, turning the mist into ribbons of violet light. The fortress courtyard was already alive with movement. Guards forming ranks, elders chanting, the air trembling with old energy. Jace Rowan stood in the middle of it all, wearing armor that didn't quite fit and courage that felt about 2 sizes too small. Lyra adjusted the strap on his chest plate, avoiding his eyes. "Do not let them see fear. They respect strength." "Then I'm doomed," he muttered. "Fear's kind of my hobby." A corner of her mouth lifted before she caught herself. "You jest too easily." "That's how humans hide terror," he said quietly. "We turn it into sarcasm." The first gong sounded, deep, ancient. Final trial 1. The arena of Steel Cale's champions stepped into the circle, a giant in crimson armor with 4 arms and eyes like molten glass. The crowd roared his name. "Ravik." Lyra leaned close. "Remember the flow, deflect, never meet force with force." "Got it, flow like water. Except I'm terrible at swimming." When the gong struck again, Ravik lunged, his blades flashing faster than thought. Jace barely ducked the first swing. Pain blossomed across his ribs where the second caught him. He staggered, instincts screaming, muscles remembering the street fights of his youth. Then something clicked. He stopped trying to fight like them. He fought like himself. A quick feint, a dirty kick, a punch no alien manual would teach. The crowd gasped when he headbutted Ravik square in the face. Ravik dropped to one knee. Jace's blade stopped just shy of the warrior's throat. "I yield," Ravik said, voice rough with surprise and respect. Silence held for a heartbeat, then the elders raised their staffs. "The first trial is complete." Lyra's eyes shone with something dangerously close to pride. Trial 2, the test of mind. In the temple's crystal chamber, illusions surrounded him, wars, betrayals, histories he didn't understand. The voice of an ancestor asked, "What is strength?" He answered honestly, knowing when to stop fighting. The illusions shimmered, rearranged. "An honor?" He hesitated. "Doing the right thing when no one's watching." The chamber flared with light, and the elders bowed. The outsider sees with heart. "The second trial is past." Lyra looked at him differently then, not as an intruder, but as an equal. Trial 3. The Soul Forge. He placed his hands on the Heartblade and closed his eyes. The world dissolved into memories. Lyra's father dying in battle. The clans tearing each other apart. Her loneliness stretching across years. Through the pain, he whispered, "You're not alone anymore." When he opened his eyes, the sword burned gold. The crowd knelt, murmuring prayers. Even Cale took a step back. Jace turned to Lyra, breathing hard. "So, Are we done with alien marriage boot camp? She actually laughed, a quiet, startled sound that echoed in the dawn. For the first time she looked at him not as a curse, but as hope wrapped in human skin. Victory didn't taste the way Jace imagined. It wasn't loud or glorious. It was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind that made him wonder what storm would follow. For 3 days after the trials, the fortress of Vareth was alive with celebration. Fires burned through the night, songs echoed through the halls, and for once the warriors laughed without fear. Everywhere Jace went, people bowed, some in respect, others because they didn't know what else to do with the human who'd tamed their sacred blade. He hated it. He wasn't built for worship. He just wanted to sleep for a week and maybe understand how he'd gone from cargo pilot to interplanetary husband. Lyra found him on the fortress balcony the 3rd night, staring at the twin moons rising above the mountains. Her steps were soft, her expression unreadable. "You should be resting," she said. "I tried," he replied, leaning on the railing. "But every time I close my eyes, I see that last trial. Your father. The wars, the fire. It's like the sword burned it into my head." She hesitated beside him. "The Heartblade shows truth to those it accepts. Few survive that burden." "I'm not sure I did," he admitted. Then after a pause, "When it showed me your past, I saw your loneliness. I felt it." Lyra's gaze softened, the first crack in her steel composure. "You speak as though it were yours." "Maybe it is," Jace said quietly. "We both lost everything to people who thought power mattered more than peace. For a moment, the wind was the only sound between them. Then she reached out and touched his hand, not out of duty this time, but choice. "You are not like them," she whispered. The peace didn't last. By morning the alarms sounded, horns echoing through stone halls. Gale Thorne had returned, leading an army of outcasts and human mercenaries, wearing familiar insignia. His insignia. Jace's stomach dropped when he recognized them. Survivors from his old unit, the ones who'd believed he'd abandoned them. Lyra's voice trembled with fury. "You brought this war to my world." "No," Jace said. "They followed me here. Or maybe they followed the sword." Kyle's voice thundered from beyond the gates. "Return the Heartblade, or this fortress burns." Lightning cracked across the sky. The storm from the day they met was back, roaring like a promise. Jace turned to Lyra. "Get your people to safety. I fight beside you." He wanted to argue, to protect her, but one look in her eyes told him that would be useless. "Then let's end this, together." They fought side by side as the walls shook and fire rained. Jace's blade sang like thunder, each swing guided by the bond between them. But when Kale seized Lyra in the chaos, pressing a blade to her throat, everything stopped. "Drop the sword," Kale growled. "Or she dies." Jace met Lyra's eyes, fear, anger, love. Then he did something no one expected. He drove the Heartblade into the ground. A wave of golden light exploded outward, consuming weapons, dissolving armor, silencing war. When the light faded, Kale's army was gone, scattered, disarmed, alive but broken. Jace collapsed to his knees, vision dimming. The sword's glow faded to embers. Lyra caught him, holding him close. "Why?" she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Because peace was worth bleeding for, even if it kills me." Outside, the storm finally broke, and for the first time, Vera's sky was clear. When Jace woke, everything was quiet. No thunder, no shouts, no clash of steel. Only the faint hum of rain against stone and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For a moment he wondered if he was still alive. Then he heard her. Lyra sat beside him, her silver hair falling across her shoulders, the faintest smile curving her lips. "You finally decided to wake up," he blinked, groggy. "Did we win?" Her laughter was soft, almost disbelieving. "If surviving counts as winning, yes." He looked around. The fortress had changed. Where shattered walls had stood now, rose banners from every clan, Vareth, Thorn, and others that had once been enemies. The people were rebuilding together, stone by stone. "How long was I out?" he asked. 4 cycles of our moons," she said gently. "You burned with the blade's power for days. The healers said you shouldn't have lived." "Story of my life," he murmured, trying to sit up. "Do I still glow when I'm angry?" She rolled her eyes. Only when you're talking too much, Jace laughed, a quiet broken sound that felt good anyway. He glanced at the heartblade resting nearby. Its once blinding gold had cooled to a calm silver blue. Guess it's retired, perhaps, Lyra said. Or perhaps it sleeps, waiting for a world that needs it again. She stood, then hesitated, one hand unconsciously touching her stomach. That small motion told him more than any words could. His breath caught. Lyra? Her eyes softened. The healers say the child is strong. A bridge between two bloodlines. For once Jace was speechless. He reached for her hand, holding it carefully as if afraid it might disappear. A half-human, half-Varen kid. That's going to break every rule in your holy book. Then we'll write new ones, she said simply. Months later, when the skies finally cleared, ships descended from the heavens, sleek and silver, bearing the insignia of the Terran Alliance. Humanity had come looking for its lost captain. The diplomats were cautious, eyes wide as they met violet-skinned warriors and glowing temples. But when they saw Jace standing beside Lyra, hand in hand, a small child asleep in her arms, they didn't see danger. They saw possibility. He introduced her not as an alien, not as a symbol, but as his wife. The word carried across the hall, heavy with meaning. Lyra bowed slightly, her voice calm and certain. Your captain brought us peace. Now we offer you friendship. It wasn't a treaty signed in blood or conquest, but in understanding. Humanity and Vera 9, two worlds that had once stood apart, now shared a single story. That night, Jace found himself back on the same balcony where everything had begun. Lyra joined him, their child nestled between them. The twin moons reflected in her silver eyes. He smiled. Crazy thing, fate. One wrong landing, one sword. And somehow I found home. She leaned into him, whispering, home isn't where you land. Jace, it's who you stand beside when the storms pass. Below them, the rebuilt world shimmered in moonlight, united, alive and free, and somewhere deep within the fortress. The heartblade pulsed once, faint but steady, as if the ancestors themselves approved.